Paul sent her flowers, chocolates, and some, I can't remember what else, something else to compensate for her having to cancel her concert because they had to shut that entire strip down for that chase scene.
No, I didn't know that.
Yep.
That's unique and creative. That's cool. That's a cool story.
Oops, sorry for ruining your concert. Here's some flowers.
Here's some compensation. Here's some flowers. No tickets to my premiere. It's fine.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to the season finale of Nerd Taku Podcast, where we watch it so you don't have to. I'm your host, Eli. With me is my co-host, Ben.
Hello, listeners. Happy to be here.
This week, we're doing something a little different. We're reviewing the 2002 to 2016 Jason Bourne series, minus the Bourne Legacy. Spoiler warnings ahead. Ben, my dude, are there spoilers?
Oh, I'm sure there's going to be plenty.
Directors: Doug Liman, Paul Greengrass. Main cast: protagonists: Matt Damon, Franca Potente, Julia Stiles, Joan Allen. Antagonists: Chris Cooper, Brian Cox, David Strathairn, Tommy Lee Jones. So, Ben, this was a very exciting series to review. I was very looking forward to it. I've always loved the spy action adventure thrillers. It's been just a pure joy of mine as a kid. It's brought me such nostalgia because as a kid, I always loved the spy stuff, like typing away, hacking things. What were your initial thoughts when you watched the series?
Oh, I was really excited to do this. I haven't seen the Bourne series in a very long time. I haven't even seen Jason Bourne since it came out in theaters. It's been a long time. I was really very excited to do this, and I love this series. I'm super excited to get into this. It was a good watch. It was fun.
This was really fun to watch. So to explain how we're going to review this today, we watched all of them and reviewed them and then averaged it out. We averaged the series. We're not doing individual films. It would take way too long for us.
Absolutely.
So as a series whole, we're doing that. Every one with Matt Damon. We already reviewed last week the one with Jeremy Renner in it. If you haven't listened to that one, go listen to that one. It was a good one. It was a good episode. But the synopsis for this film is: a CIA assassin suffering from amnesia attempts to uncover the truths of his past and escape attempts on his life from the directors in charge of the Treadstone program in the process. That's the series in whole. It's a lot of like flashbacks of him remembering things, and it's going to be fun to dive into this whole series as a whole.
Agreed.
On IMDb, these films averaged out to have like a 7.8, 7.7. And the last one, Jason Bourne, got the lowest at 6.6. With the highest being Ultimatum at 8.
So around average of 7.5.
Yeah, about an average of 7.5. So for me, I gave this series a 7.75.
I finished it with an 8.25.
I'm excited to see what we have commonalities and differences.
Agreed.
So let's get this going. Let's start with plot.
Plot, I gave a 1.
I gave it a 0.75. I will say that the first 3 films were really good stories. I really did like it. And I thought that the story of Jason Bourne trying to discover himself was very clever and find who he was. That 4th film, I just didn't. Bringing the dad in was a little weird to me. The series, the 4th story, is based on 12 years after 3 happened. And because of that, Jason Bourne's been hiding, basically underground, doing ring fights in Kreese. And all of a sudden, Nikki is like brings into the story that his father was part of the program and it had to get him out of hiding. I thought the way 3 ended was a really nice send off to Jason Bourne as a character. So with the plot of 4, I just felt like, yes, it could have happened years later. Nikki brings in this whole thing, but I think it could have been left out, to be honest. So overall, I give it, it doesn't like really affect the overarching series, but I think it was just shoehorned a little bit in to get another movie out.
I quite enjoyed Jason Bourne, actually. I felt like, yes, the third one did give a pretty good send off to Jason, and it could have ended. But I like the way they brought him back in with the fact that his father was the original creator of the Treadstone program, and that he didn't actually volunteer for the program like Dr. Hirsch had said. He was watched and monitored, goaded to going into the program by the directors killing his father. And that was the whole starting point of Jason being part of this Treadstone program. When in Ultimatum, Dr. Hirsch had told him that he completely volunteered for it. They never told him to do it. They never invited him. They never goaded him. But in Jason Bourne, it's shown that he was monitored and brought up to be part of this program. And the way to get him in was to kill his father. I felt like it was a pretty good addition and a pretty great continuation of the previous 3. I felt like it fit pretty well.
See, I see where you're coming from. I see the connections, and I just wasn't really a big fan of it. Like the original 3 just were. I just see it as such a good trilogy. And then the 4th one, it does add a bit to the plot. Don't get me wrong. It's really, it does justice. It wasn't really a strong one in my opinion.
I just feel like it was great storytelling throughout. It was Jason trying to figure out who he was from the very first film. Then it went into the second one with a continuation of him trying to learn who he is, but also reclaim his name from Abbott having attempted to frame him for a death of agents that he never committed. It was Abbott trying to cover his ass for $20 million worth of taxpayer money that he stole. And then Ultimatum was just an absolute surprise to find that it was the in-between story of the actions of after Jason had dealt with Abbott and right to the end of Supremacy. It took place mostly in that small window. So it was still during the events of Supremacy, but because you find that out after he delivers the same line that he delivered at the end of Supremacy about 30 minutes before the end of the film in Ultimatum. And then he meets Dr. Hirsch. And then Jason Bourne comes in later with about 12 years after the story of Ultimatum. So I liked the surprise factor that Ultimatum wasn't after Supremacy. It was during the events of Supremacy. So it wasn't it was a continuation, but it was a direct continuation. It wasn't years later, weeks later, or months later. Supremacy happens like 2 or 3 years after Identity. And then Ultimatum is during the events of Supremacy. It's pretty cool how they mix that into the story. It's just, I felt like this story was quite intricate, impressive. Everything really went together. Yes, you could have done without the 4th, but I still like that they brought it back in to redeem the series because of what Legacy had done. That's what they brought it back in for. And so they created a new story and added the fact that his father was the original creator of the program. It was mostly meant for a redemption story, and I feel like it succeeded in that.
All right, I see where you're coming from. It did have to bring a redemption from that travesty of freaking fourth film with Legacy. Acting.
0.75.
I gave acting a 0.75 as well. I think I felt like the acting in this was overall good. It wasn't outstanding. Matt Damon did a great job. Like for being the main role, it was great. I just there was a few characters here and there in each one that I'm just like, all right, you're okay. You're not like outstanding. I'm not going to say you were the best, but you weren't the worst. My least favorite character probably was Tommy Lee Jones. Least favorite. I didn't like him really. I felt like he mumbled his lines throughout, and I just felt like it was. I just didn't like him overall. I felt weird with him in the series, but overall, it was a good performance from the overall series. It was a good performance. I couldn't give it a 1, so I gave it the 0.75. I just couldn't. To me, it wasn't like outstanding.
I feel like it was a pretty stellar cast. Obviously, Matt Damon, fantastic, freaking fantastic. He killed this performance. It was
Yes.
outstanding. One of his best delivered lines was when he was in the car with Marie and they had just gotten into some type of firefight for a minute and she was freaking out and he is screaming at her, but you could see the intensity in his body language, and hear it in his voice, and it was just absolutely stellar in the very first film, Identity. It was outstanding. I don't really agree with you about Tommy Lee Jones. I think he played an amazing antagonist. He was stuck in his old ways, 100% against Jason Bourne, like all the rest of the antagonists. I feel like he put on a pretty stellar performance himself. His character has always been, just his acting style has always been that low, grumbled, almost mumbly voice. That's just who he is. He's typecast. That's his character. I feel like the one that brought my my acting down was Franca. I didn't like her very much as Marie. I didn't feel like she really needed to be. Her character did need to be in the story, but I don't feel like they picked the proper person to put as Franca as a lead lady for the first film and half of the second. Her performance wasn't it just didn't match Matt Damon. It didn't match the rest of the cast. When Julia Stiles got put in the lead lady role in Ultimatum and partially through Jason Bourne, absolutely stupendous. I loved Julia Stiles in her role. Stepping up, becoming the lead lady was absolutely impressive. Her performance was killer. Not quite as high as Matt Damon's, but it was better than Franca's. Franca brought my acting down to a 0.75.
I agree with you there. Franca was the weakest link in that first film. She didn't seem as experienced as some of the other cast members, and overall, I think they could have picked someone else. Like, I agree with you, and I think it would have been just as well done or even better. But now, as I watch the movies again, I couldn't picture really anyone else as I see it.
See, that's the problem. I can't really either, but I just her character it just irks me. She irks me. I'm not a big fan
Yeah,
of her playing that role. It's just I don't think that she's powerful enough to be a leading lady.
yes, I agree with you there.
But I do have to say Brian Cox in the second film, Supremacy, did an amazing job playing a squirrely, scared never acted for himself, but always got someone else to do the dirty work, except for when he was put in a corner down in the basement and took the knife to the guy's side. Other than that, everybody else did the work and killing for him to cover his own ass. I felt like him creating that squirrely, conniving antagonist for Matt Damon's Jason was quite impressive. I felt I don't know how to explain it, but I felt like he needed to go.
Yes.
I felt for Jason because he is the one who framed. He hired someone. See, the way he did it was he blackmailed a high-ranking official in the German government to hire somebody in his secret service to attack Jason rather than getting it done himself. He's squirrely, he's conniving, he's really good at talking to people, convincing them to do stuff for him, really great at blackmail. Just he created a character that you absolutely hated and just wanted to see die.
Yes, yes. There was a scene with Brian Cox when he was sitting in that chair, and when Pamela came in, and you could just see that the squirrely little man trying to escape from his problems. And I was just like, wow, okay. What a cock way to go out.
Take
Killing-
his own life.
Take his own life, not deal with the consequences of his actions, going to prison and all that for treason. That was the squirreliness. That was the spineless coward in him. Let's go with character development.
I gave that a 0.75.
I gave it a 0.75 as well. Why couldn't it get a 1, Ben?
For the most part, this entire film is based solely around Jason, obviously. It's called the Bourne series. It's Bourne. But his development was just him trying to find out who he is and then trying not to die from the assassins that are attacking him. He has development when he starts to figure out who he is, then he gets with Marie, then he starts to grow humanity, which was taken and ripped away from him when he first entered this program. They stripped him of his humanity so that he could do the job. But as he's going through life with Marie, he's starting to find love, find out that, he has these feelings other than what were implanted in his head. And so his development is he's starting to get more humanity in him. And ultimately he ends up, instead of fully figuring out who he is by the end of Identity, he decides to run away with Marie to just escape it all. So he's just given up on trying to fully learn who he is. After getting in it with Conklin and not getting the answers he wanted, he ends up deciding to just leave and be with Marie. And they're gone for several years until he gets hunted down in Supremacy and she gets shot. And for that, he takes revenge for Marie. His development is strong, but everyone around him doesn't have much development. Yes, it's solely focused on him, but you still need side character development. When it comes to antagonists, there's no development in any of them. Their main mission is to cover their asses, so they're gonna kill Bourne. That's what it is. Marie had some development as well. She was just a gypsy who went place to place. Then she finally found Bourne, ended up kind of scared of him, then not scared of him, then scared of him, then not scared of him, and then ended up falling for him. And so after the things that happened at Identity, they run away together. Then she gets killed. Her development was pretty slow, but it happened. Same with Nikki. She was just an analyst or a contact for the agents in the first two films. Then come Ultimatum, she learns exactly what Bourne's character is and who he is and not what the files say. So she decides on her own to help Bourne, which ends up ultimately getting her hunted by Treadstone program. There's some development, but it's not enough to justify that one. Most of the development is through Bourne when he gets his humanity with Marie. And then after that, his development pretty much plateaus and then regresses. And then he regains a little bit of character development when Nikki comes into the picture. But for the most part, he's just pretty stellar, pretty plateaued.
I think the development, I agree with you that Matt Damon his character, Jason Bourne, is the most developed throughout the series. Each person that you would think would regress very quickly would be the directors, and they all either died or they got arrested. So they were one-time things. And Marie was a film in like 10 minutes opening. So her development was there, like you said, but it wasn't like super strong. And then when Nikki came in, she was the most consistent female development through the series, with her starting at Treadstone, being the analyst, and then in the second one, she becomes an informant for Pamela. And then the third one, it's the same. It's basically another informant, and she has to go meet up with Jason. And then in the fourth one, she becomes this person who, after 12 years, is trying to release all these documents to make sure that everyone knows about Treadstone, Blackbriar. They know about what was it, Ironhead, and trying to expose it. So there was very little development. Like every time Jason Bourne developed, it was more like his memories just came back. Like in the third one, when he actually chose not to kill, he actually got the other asset to drop his gun. It was those minor little progressions that you saw, but like you said, he did mainly plateau throughout the series. So a 0.75 is justifiable for this whole series. Sound and music.
0.75.
I gave it a 0.75. It's the same music. Same music throughout. Nothing really changed. They kept what was working for the whole series. It was good. It wasn't spectacular. It was just good. But that ending song, my guy, that ending song, so good at the end. Yeah. Benny. Yeah, so good. So good. And like, it's so good that my boss at work, he'll play that in the truck.
Nice.
Once in a while. It's so good. But beyond that, it's the same action music. Like it sounds so generic.
I love the music. I absolutely love Bourne's theme song. Always have, always will.
Amen.
It's not the music that got me. If you listen to the punches and the kicks, the hand-to-hand combat, it sounds like I'm watching a freaking Batman cartoon or reading a comic. Pow, bang. Feels like that. You hear the whoosh, whoosh, tch, pff. I'm like, what kind of sound effects are these? Just people doing noises with their mouths? Freaking hit something. Make an actual sound.
And it steadily gets worse and worse in each film.
Actually, in Ultimatum and Bourne, they got better. It was Identity and Supremacy that it just was not good. It sounded like I was watching a cartoon. That's what brought it down. Because the gunshots, the explosions, the music, I can't freaking express how much I love Bourne's music. So freaking good. But those hand-to-hand combat sounds needed improvement.
Truly, I agree there. Cinematography and animation.
0.75.
I gave it a 0.75. I'm just going to say this. In the fourth film, there was a scene where you're trying to look over Jason Bourne's shoulder when he's looking at his phone for a text message. I'm sorry. There's a thing called a zoom and a gimbal. What happened? I felt like I was watching a junior camera operator shaking the whole time trying to read a text. I'm like, all right, can we focus? Okay, there you go. There we go. Oh, scene ended. Cool. I got 3/4 of the text. Cool. Like, I just felt like some of the shots in the latest one and in the first one were just very shaky. Were very, like, they shouldn't been like so bad, like shaky like that. Like, there's moments where like the action sequences, the cuts were very clean, very cool. I love the shot in 3 when he jumps through the window. Don't get me wrong. And he just rolls in and starts whooping that dude's ass.
Badass.
Yeah, it was so good. It was so good. But the thing is, for how much these films had budgets, these films progressively got better budgets, but the camera quality was just some of the shots throughout 2, 3, and 4 a little shaky. And I was like, come on, guys, there's things called Steadicam. You don't need the shakiness in some of these scenes. So overall, it was good, but I couldn't give the one. The inconsistencies were just too much.
I agree. I like the shaky cam when it came to the action sequences, but there were scenes when the shaky cam was not needed, and for some reason they decided to put it in. My biggest thing was they're in Europe, yeah? For a lot of this series, they are in Europe.
Like 80% of it.
Uh-huh. European cars do not have the steering wheel on the left-hand side of the vehicle. Every single car they drove in had this steering wheel on the left-hand side. Every cop car had the steering wheel on the left-hand side. The only one that fixed that to make it make sense was Jason Bourne, because they were in the United States for like 80% of that film. Other than that, they were in European cities. Europe doesn't have, unless they customly order an American car, the steering wheel is not on the left-hand side. It's on the right-hand side. Nobody had that accurate. None of the vehicles. That bothered the crap out of me. But for the most part, the camera work was quite impressive. I enjoyed the quick cuts, the zoom in, zoom outs, the close-ups on faces as they're talking one-on-one, the shaky cam, except for where they didn't need it. I even enjoyed the dark scenes, and I'm not one for the dark scenes. I'm really not. I mean, I've expressed that many, many times on this show. But they worked in these films. This series did it well. It just bothered me that they didn't get the frickin' vehicles right.
Now that you mention it, yeah, I do agree. Like, a lot of these vehicles were just Americanized for driving. It was weird. It was very weird. Also, I think one scene that I thought the shaky cam worked very well was in the second movie during the chase scene. You could in Russia, you could see back and forth. The guy's trying to cut back and forth, and then when you hit the accident, you see the shaky cam like going everywhere, and then it stops, and you see Jason Moore get out of the car and like point the gun. I'm like, dude, that was so intense, so intense.
I agree.
Okay, I want to think of it. I thought the Jason Bourne's last chase scene in the last film wasn't. It was cool, but it wasn't like. It was nothing like the other 3 films. It just felt lackluster in the shots. There was one cool car shot when he cut over and like just went for it, and That Dodge Charger, man, that thing survived through the apocalypse.
I actually quite enjoyed that chase scene because they customized that vehicle, the SWAT vehicle, so that it could plow through all those vehicles. I was reading up on it. They asked the director how many vehicles does he think they went through, and he's like, "Oh, I know exactly how many we went through. I had to pay for it all. We went through 170.
Holy
Quick answer. 170 vehicles to crash through. Plus, the Riviera was getting torn down in Vegas, so they got permission to actually smash that SWAT vehicle through the front entrance of the Riviera.
That's why the budget was so high for that film.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the budget was 120 million for that one. Wow.
Yeah,
that's
I was
that's
reading up on
impressive.
it. I'm like, oh, that, because I was like, I wonder if that's really possible. So I was just looking up to see if it was possible for a SWAT vehicle to go through that many vehicles.
Yeah,
And
exactly. I was looking that up.
it turns out that they customized it so it could smash through all those vehicles. A
Yeah,
real SWAT vehicle could, but not to that degree. Not 170 cars.
yeah. When that scene happened, I immediately grabbed my phone and went, "Yo, how many cars can a SWAT vehicle go through?"
Pretty close to like 50.
Yeah, but that thing would have died so badly.
Yeah. I was like, this is very exaggerated, I think. Let me look this up.
Exactly.
Yes, it definitely is. But it was still fun. And it was still like 5 times better than the chase scene we got in Legacy. Come on. Am I wrong there?
No. Jason Bourne just knows how to drive, okay? This man just knows how to drift a Dodge Charger like a NASCAR.
Dude, I love watching
driver.
Jason's chase scenes because he's drifting all over the place with every vehicle he gets in. I love it.
I feel like I'm watching a Fast and Furious film. Just like the amount of shifting they like go through. It's like, okay, what is your gearbox like 10 shifts? Like,
well, they're
so
upshifting and downshifting for the drift.
I know. It's just like it feels like a Fast and Furious movie sometimes, but it's still cool.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I love the chase scenes.
Directing
got a 1.
I gave it a 0.75.
Tell me why.
I've given everything else in this a 0.75. I have not given a 1 yet in this series. I can't justify giving this director a 1 when I'm talking about the inconsistencies in every category. That's like, I can't give him a 1. Like,
it makes sense.
These two directors by themselves made great films. Like, I love the fact that Doug started the series off strong. Like that, the first movie's great. Like, it's a nostalgic film. Yes, I shouldn't have watched it at the age I watched it at, but still, it was still a good film. And then Paul came in and brought the same energy for the rest of the series. It wasn't like Doug came in, left, and then Paul just ruined it. This ain't the trilogy of Star Wars 7, 8, and 9. It's not like that. It was very well done because these directors try to keep the same vision because they really had the writer there. So I thought they did a good job, but because of all the things I've said and my ratings are at a 0.75, I couldn't give it a 1.
Yeah, now that you're talking about it, I'll probably drop it. Mine was the sole fact that Doug brought this story to life with Bourne Identity. Absolutely freaking fantastic film. Original idea from Ludlum's novels. Said, you know what? Let's put this on film. And he did it. And it was amazing. The story was great. The acting was pretty up there besides one person. But, you know, it worked. And it was awesome. It was intense. It was fun. The music was amazing. You know, that that intense. It pulls you in, and that's for every action scene throughout the entire series. They don't differ from the sound. I liked it. I loved it. I felt so connected to this film. It pulled me in. And then Paul takes over for the rest of the series, and he does a fantastic job matching the energy of Identity. But you're right. We had a lot of inconsistencies throughout that we've been criticizing, and I do have to agree. I will drop mine to a 0.75 because I've only given 1 since this started, and that went to plot because it was a pretty overall great plot between the two directors. Paul did a good job keeping to the original story, but you know, acting, development, or sound and music and cinematography did get 0.75s, so I will have to drop my directing to a 0.75 because there was enough to critique. But overall, I feel like the two of them were of the same mind and knew exactly what to deliver, and it was done. It was beautiful, an amazing story.
Yes, I do. I do agree with you there. I'll also want to point out that neither of these directors were connected to the Bourne legacy. Neither of them were connected at all. So
Thank God, because that was a disaster of a film.
yes, and I like the fact that they tried the. I really did like the fact that the author of the book was so engrossed into this whole thing. It was really a breath of fresh air to see an actual writer wanting his work to be portrayed correctly. Attraction.
I gave that a 0.75.
I gave it a 1. When I look at this series, I think of spies, I think of action adventure. When I was looking at this again, I was just so engrossed in the world of spies and assassins, and I always loved how Jason Bourne would go through and like stop at a train station, pick up his bag, and like close and like leave immediately. It's like, I'm like, where'd you get all this stuff? And then like you see him throughout the whole series. New locker. Let's put this in. Hide, run. While he gets to the same bag. I'm like, what? How you getting the? Like, I just love the spy aspect. I was always enthralled with the spy aspect of this series, and I loved how Jason Bourne became a man who wanted answers to his actual normal life. He didn't want to live this life of a assassin spy. He wanted to move on and live his life. I really did enjoy that. So that's why I gave Attraction a 1. It kept me engrossed because I loved learning about the spy world and how Jason Bourne went through it, defeating every spy that came to him to try to defeat him. He still outwitted all of them. It was cool to see.
I agree. I love the spy life, and I love that this one felt more realistic towards what. I mean, I don't really know what kind of gizmos and gadgets the spy life actually has, but in my mind, this follows more realistic detail than something like Mission Impossible or 007, who have all these gadgets and gizmos that help them with their missions, right? This one's just the brain of the operative himself plus guns. Pretty much what I feel like happens in real life. Obviously, I don't know. I would never know gizmos and gadgets the CIA actually has, but I feel like it's just what is given to us with the Bourne series. My attraction went down because of all the 0.75s that I gave before it. The acting wasn't all there. Your development was there, but not. Your sound sucked as far as hand-to-hand combat goes. It was distracting. It made me realize that I was just watching a film. I wasn't there. I wasn't engrossed into it. I love the story, But a few things pulled my attention away, and so my attraction went down.
I see where you're coming from. I think I went with more the nostalgic feeling of, because I used to watch these with my dad growing up as a young preteen to a teenager. I would watch these time and like here and there throughout my childhood, and it felt good to relive the trilogy series. And then I watched Jason Bourne as an adult, and it wasn't my favorite, but I still enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong, I really did. So yeah, I went more with on the nostalgic side of things.
Understandable. Mine was just more to the point of the film instead of my feelings.
Mm-hmm. Dialogue.
0.5.
Yeah, I gave that a 0.5. Why the 0.5, Ben?
Oh, you want me to go first?
Yeah, why the 0.5?
All right. Well, to be honest, I just feel like a lot of the dialogue was there just to push the story, you know? There wasn't really anything that stuck out, nothing real snazzy dazzy. Really, I only have like one or two lines here. From Identity, there was one line that made me laugh. It's Jason and Marie are being chased down an alleyway, and there's like a bump coming up it goes over and then into a set of stairs.
Yeah.
And he's like, and Marie is like, wait, what? So we got a bump coming up. What? And then the car's going down this staircase. It's like, poof. I thought that the delivery of that line was pretty funny. It made me laugh. Another one is, as I had said earlier in acting, when Matt Damon is screaming at Marie in the car, he's like, I don't know what happened. I don't know who this guy is. I don't know about the picture. I don't know who I am. It was just the way he delivered it. I swear to God, this is one of the best lines he gave from it. It was throughout the whole series. This was the best delivered line from Matt Damon. Just the intensity in his eyes, the anger in his voice, confusion. He just doesn't know who he is or what the hell's going on. And Marie is just upping the anxiety in Jason Bourne at this moment, and he just freaks out on her for a quick second. And it's delivered absolutely amazingly. And then the last line is from Ultimatum. Like, one of the most iconic lines in cinematic history is he sees him on screen and all he says is, Jesus Christ, that's Jason Bourne. Everybody knows that line. You don't have to have seen this film. At some point, you've heard that line.
Yep.
One of the most iconic lines in cinematic history. But really, it was really just the iconic line and the screaming point of Jason that kind of stuck out to me in 4 films. That's what, 7 hours, 8 hours worth of watching something, and you only have 3 lines written down, because most of them were just meant to push the plot. There wasn't really anything that stuck out. So it kind of fence lined at a 0.5.
I agree with you there. Out of 4 films, if you look at those 3 lines, that's pretty much it. I could think of another line of when Brian Cox's character from Supremacy, he's sitting in that chair and he talks about how he's a patriot. I'm a patriot. I served my country. And then like all of a sudden he pulls the gun up and just pops himself quickly. Like, that was a line where it's like, he did what he did to serve. He was a patriot. It was like, you saw what it did to him, to how corrupt he became trying to serve his country. But no, a lot of the lines were just plot fillers, like trying to push that plot forward for sure. And I can't really say there was anything else there that was outstanding. I think that there was one line in the third one at the end when he's like, talking to the other dude, the other asset, and he's like, "Look what they made you give up. Well, look what they've done. Look at this." And the guy just sits there for a minute, and then Jason Bourne turns around to start running, and the guy puts his gun down because he made him realize that, oh yeah, what am I doing? Like, it was like a gleam of a moment, and then you saw the director try to shoot at him.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing really much out of like 7.5, 8 hour films, like you said. That's kind of sad, but understandable. So the 0.5 is justifiable. Scenery.
That's a 1.
Gave it a 0.75. I felt like yes, a lot of this film was based in Europe. I understand that. I just felt in the fourth film, they just took a bunch of the same locations from the first film and just slapped it on and did it again. They added Vegas, and that was pretty much it, because they always started, it felt like each time they did a scenery, it was like Rome, Italy is the headquarters. Like always Rome, Italy started. And then in the third one, London was part of the scenery. And then in the fourth one, London again, because they added a plot point where this one dude was there. It felt like they just used some of the same scenery areas throughout the series. There were some differences. Like in the third one, they went to like Portugal, and they went to New York in the third one. In the second one, they went to Russia. But throughout the series, they just used the same like 4 locations. And so I couldn't give it a 1. I just felt like it was just like, okay, cool. They just did that. But it was beautiful. Don't get me wrong. The cities were very filled with life, and very like it was actually crowded. It was actually intense to see Jason Bourne hide in the crowds in like the train stations. And that's why I give the 0.75, because I felt like they used some cities a little too much.
That didn't really bother me. I was so enthralled with them traveling to Rome and to Italy and Germany and Greece and the US. They were all over the place. They weren't stationary like a lot of films. They were everywhere. They were in Langley. They were out in New York City. They were in Vegas. They were out in Greece. They were in Athens. They went to the Athena statue in Athens. They were all over the place, and I loved it. I loved the overshot views that they've gave throughout with the chase thing. Even with the chase scenes, they were throughout all over the city. Plenty of people outside. It wasn't abandoned. It was just fun. It was beautiful. Even at the very beginning of Bourne Identity, he's floating on the ocean with a little light on him and gets hauled in by this fishing boat. Some random person floating outside. I just loved it. They were everywhere. Yeah, they may have gone to the same places and multiple times throughout the series, but that's because that's where people were stationed, where he wanted to get information at. That doesn't bother me any. They do that in every film. Even we did an entire series compared to doing just one film that repeats multiple locations throughout that one film. This is an entire series that's going all over the freaking world. Absolutely loved it.
See, I changed mine to a 1. I agree with you on a lot of your points. It was bustling, very crowded, but it also brought life to the story, and you could see different sceneries. I think of the second movie where near the end, it was like you saw a lot of Moscow, Russia. You saw a lot of it quickly. in the chase scenes. And then in the third one, you saw a lot of New York. And then in the fourth one, you saw Las Vegas. You saw quite a bit of it. And you saw in the third one, like I said, the train station. That was Waterloo Station is huge. So I agree with you. I brought it up to a 1, and it.
Did you know that when the fourth one was being filmed, they shut down the strip for 3 days and it interrupted Beyonce's concert? And so Paul sent her flowers, chocolates, and I can't remember what else, something else to compensate for her having to cancel her concert because they had to shut that entire strip down for that chase scene.
No, I didn't know that.
Yep.
That's unique and creative. That's cool. That's a cool story.
Oops, sorry for ruining your concert. Here's some flowers.
Here's some compensation. Here's some flowers. No tickets to my premiere. It's fine. Finally, let's talk about recommend.
Oh, that's a 1.
Yeah, this series, so good. I gave it a 1 as well. Overall, this series, this is what a spy film should be. This is this is the reality. If you don't want the 007 gimmick type of spy film, this is realistic. Like, this could be happening already in the world today. And it's such a good story. Matt Damon brought out this character so well. And you could feel the sadness of him trying to unravel his mind and figure out who he was. You could feel the frustration he was feeling. You could feel the remorse that he had towards that girl that finds out in the second movie that he killed her parents. You could feel it. You could feel him trying to fix things and make things right. And he's trying to end this so he could live life normally and redeem Marie because of what happened. Because of his life, she died, and he feels that. You can see it. And overall, this series is just so good. Avoid the fourth one, but like the Bourne Legacy, but everything else, give it a watch.
Absolutely agree. Totally worth your time. You don't have to binge it. Just when you get a chance, watch the first one, then wait a while, watch the second one, wait another little while, watch the third one, and then watch Jason Bourne, the fifth one. Again, stay away from Legacy. Hot garbage. But it's worth your time. It's an amazing action thriller about one man trying to figure out who he is. It's that simple. I loved it. So much action, so much fun. The kabooms and bang bangs were a lot of fun. It's just a great fun time that you can have with your family. Spend an hour and a half, 2 hours a night, even like once a week or something, whatever. Just watch the series together. You will wholeheartedly enjoy it. It is so much fun. And it's pretty family friendly. There's not a lot of gore. There's not a lot of language. Really, it's just violence. It's not even that bad. Like, they fight each other for a while. But for the most part, it doesn't show a lot of blood spatter. It doesn't show any type of nudity or any of that. It's just an action thriller. Edge of your seat, adrenaline pumping, lots of fun movie. You will love this series. Give it a try.
Yes. So overall, I gave it an 8 for the series.
Hey, same. I ended with an 8.
Yay, we agreed.
We match.
We match, yay.
But I will say, after having rewatched the last one, I can now see why Matt Damon is thinking about doing another one, because they definitely left it open for a sixth film.
They did.
100%. Because when I first saw this in theaters, I guess I didn't pay much attention because I keep saying they freaking finished the story. Why are they going to keep going? It's done. But I rewatched it and I'm like, oh, actually, they really left that open for another one. If they wanted to, they could easily make another one.
Yeah, they could. And because of this whole timeline scenario, they're just pushing the timeline to be even longer. So it could be 8 years later from the last film we just watched. So like because the fourth one was 12 years from the third one. So it's interesting to see what they're going to do, because they did do that TV series Treadstone on USA Network. I heard it was okay. It wasn't like outstanding or groundbreaking, but I heard it was okay. So as we wrap up this season of Nerd Taku Podcast, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning into this season. If you'd like to follow us, we're on Instagram, Threads, and Twitter at nerd_taku_podcast. We're also on YouTube under Kingdom Notes Studios. I'd like to say thank you everyone for tuning into this season, and I'm excited for season 3. We are planning to be releasing that in the next little while. We're gonna take a few weeks of a break to relax, rejuvenate, and get back into the swing of things. We just want to just take some time to ourselves. But thank you all for listening and tuning in each week. Have a good week.
Thanks, guys. We have had a lot of fun this season. Can't wait to get started back up next season. We're going to have 2 or 3 guests again. Going to make it a lot of fun. It's going to be great.